Welcome to another day, ladies and gentlemen, of Ready to Rock movement. We're here with another phenomenal woman who has overcome tragedy and has found her own brand of triumph. So today she's going to share with us that story. And it starts with Trasetta Alexander of Sister Spotters. Welcome, Trasetta.
Thank you so much, Shaniqua. It's a pleasure to be here with the Ready to Rock ladies, and I am ready to rock.
Yes, I'm glad to hear that. We're just going to go ahead and get started with your story.
Absolutely.
It is phenomenal because, like so many others, I know that through your story, you realize life is short and time to start living it. So go ahead, and if I have questions, I will definitely ask them after you speak.
Sure, no problem. So again, it's truly an honor to be here and share a little bit of my own personal story of triumph. And so 2014, I was a non-traditional student and I was preparing to graduate from college. And unfortunately, 2 weeks after my graduation, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And so what should have been a very exciting time for me ended up being overshadowed by this news. And so I kind of went into this funk, if you will, and just didn't really know what I was going to do. So my entire plan had to be placed on hold so that I could take care of me and my health and make sure that I was okay without having to worry about work or my plan was to continue into graduate school. And so didn't need to be worried about school. I just really need to be focused on me. But of course, I was also really scared. So no one wants to get that call. No one wants to hear that news that, by the way, your biopsy results came back with there's cancer. And being faced with your own mortality, you have all kinds of thoughts that kind of start flying through your head. And I knew that I had the power to create the outcome that I wanted. The pen basically was in my hand. I had the ability to write the end of the story. And so I made a swift decision to face my fear. And, whenever you're going into anything, especially when fear is attached to it, there is, if you have the ability to overcome one thing, you know that same skill is transferable to another. And so one of the things that I decided to do to kind of help build up my faith was to go ziplining. So I had a fear of heights ever since I was a kid. I couldn't even stand on top of a chair and look down without getting scared. And so this was going to be a huge, huge challenge for me. And I tried to get somebody to go with me and nobody else wanted to go. But I think it was a good thing because a lot of times in life, the situations that we face that are challenging, even though we may have a system of support surrounding us, we have to go through it alone. That inner turmoil is not going to be shared with someone else. Although you can verbalize it, you are the one that has to carry that load. You are the one that kind of has to carry that burden. And so I decided to go ahead, schedule my day to go and get harnessed in and do this, what they call tree-to-tree adventure. Now, I was completely and totally scared out of my mind. It challenged my faith on so many levels because even though, your mind knows that you're strapped in, that you're safe, that, even if your feet slip, you're not going to fall because you're latched into the safety line. But your emotions and your sight messes with you. Your other senses or your senses begin to mess with your head. And so I'm up here, I don't know how many feet in the air, hanging on by this this wire, it's probably about an inch thick wire, going across these various obstacles that they get more and more challenging as you go further down the course. And a lady in front of me couldn't take it. She got off the course, but I was determined that I was going to finish the course, because I knew that if I could come out of that triumphant, that no matter what came ahead of me in the upcoming months, I could also come out of there triumphant. And Shaniqua, I cannot begin to tell you the feeling that I had when I hooked into that zip line and got to my feet back on the ground. I felt so accomplished, because I had overcome something that had paralyzed me for the majority of my life. And so I was like, okay, yes, I can do this. I can do this, and I can come out a winner, not only a survivor, but a thriver.
Yeah, that's incredible, because ziplining is on my 40th list. So
I was 40 when I did. I did it for my 41st birthday.
That's awesome.
Yes, and so it was through that experience that I realized that I had kind of been sleepwalking through life. I was living, or I thought that I was living, but all of a sudden I became alive in a new way. And even though I knew that I was going to live, that we caught the cancer very early, so my prognosis was very good, but it just was a reality check. It was this wake up call where I'm like, I don't want to go through the rest of my life the way that I have been, living in fear, playing small, second guessing myself, and always thinking about the what ifs, or the woulda, coulda, shouldas. And so I decided from that moment on that I was going to live the rest of my life with no regrets. And I decided to take some bold actions. And so at the time I had my own business. It was really small. It's called Upcycled. It's a furniture refinishing business. And I decided, you know what, as soon as this process is over, I'm kicking this bad boy into high gear. And so I started taking risks, and I started doing some other things, but I found that I was kind of alone. Being on this journey, entrepreneurial journey, most of us start out in business for ourselves, but we also start out by ourselves. So we don't have the liberty of having this huge team to help us build our businesses. And so I missed that in my upcycle business. So I started looking for ways to find that same sort of support. And that's when the idea of Sister Spotters came about, because I'm like, there's got to be other women who are entrepreneurs that miss the same thing that I miss, that want someone that, because when you have, as an entrepreneur, we're kind of a weird breed. We have a completely different mindset than other people. And people who aren't entrepreneurs or don't have that entrepreneurial mindset don't really understand us. They don't get us. And so I started reaching out to other women that I knew that had businesses or wanted to start businesses, and said, hey, what do you guys think about having a support group where we come together once a month and just support one another in our businesses? We can cheer each other on, we can hold each other accountable and whatnot. And so we started originally with just 5 people meeting once a month. And over time that dwindled down to just the three core that I continue to meet with now. And probably about 9 months into us having these monthly Sister Spotters support group meetings, I started getting a greater vision for what Sister Spotters could be. It was like, there was 3 of us, in that room. And it was having such a huge impact on our businesses and on our mindsets and on our relationships that I was like, more women have to need this. So I started looking into ways that I can then reach out to a broader community to provide a system of support for other women. And so I guess we're in 2018 now. So during the fall of 2016, I decided to close down my furniture refinishing business so that I can launch Sister Spotters as its own entity, because, you can't build two businesses simultaneously. One is going to suffer. Either they're both going to be mediocre, or one is just going to really go down while the other soars. So I knew that I could not be divided. I couldn't be in division, because that's really what it would be, two separate visions. And so I said, let's put this on pause, because even though I enjoyed it, I'm not passionate about refinishing furniture. It was more of a kind of a relaxing thing for me, but I am passionate about women and helping them to pursue their potential. And so Sister Spotters became born as an actual business in January of 2017. And so over the last year or so, I've now been holding entrepreneurship empowerment events to share with other women who either want to start a business or have a business, how they can go about gathering all the resources and tools that they need in order to launch, and not just launch, but launch a successful business. And so 2018, I've got some really awesome, juicy things coming up for the community, my Sister Spotters community. And I'm just super excited to see what women can achieve when we come together and support one another rather than compete against one another. I have this thing where I say we're stronger together, and no one's successful in and of themselves. We each have to have, if you own a business, you got to have customers. If you're a teacher, you need a classroom or students. If you're a pastor, you need a congregation. No one is successful alone. And so if we could work together, we can achieve so much more than if we try to go it alone.
That is the absolute truth. And honestly, I found getting it together with a mastermind of like-minded women, going into a space of accelerating our businesses, our dreams, and our goals was life-saving and life-changing.
Yes.
So I absolutely agree with you on that one. I wanted to talk more about, so you brought up that breast cancer, having that was the tragedy and the transition, because it made you realize, that life, I need to live life. Is that how you would describe it?
Yes. And it was that awakening. It was an awakening for me. It was definitely an awakening for me. I guess I didn't realize that I was sleepwalking. Think about it. How many times, we've all been there. I guarantee you can totally relate to this. How many times have you been watching TV and you drifted off to sleep and you didn't even know that you were asleep until you woke up?
Yep.
And so that's what it was like for me. Somewhere along the line in my life, I drifted off to sleep, but I didn't realize it. And so it was the sound of the call. It was the sound of the nurse telling me what they found that awoke me from this slumber. And so now that I'm awake, I'm determined to stay awake and live life to the fullest and not be afraid anymore. Because what's the worst that can happen? I'll leave here. And I've already faced that. And so it's like, now I'm not afraid to leave here. And when I leave here, I want to leave here empty. I don't want to leave anything on the table. I don't want to leave anything on the table.
To leave here empty.
Yes.
No regrets at all. So I don't think we mentioned how it is that you you came to find, or how it is that they discovered that you had the breast cancer?
So I started having mammograms in my early 20s because I found a small mass. I think I was about 21 years old. And it turned out to be benign, but they wanted to monitor it over time to make sure that it didn't grow too swiftly or develop into anything more. And so it was, um, as an African American woman, we tend to have more dense breasts anyway. And so we tend to be more prone to having cysts and other type, they're called fibroadenomas, which they're just benign tumors. And so as a result of them finding that and me having these regular screenings, I kind of got used to having to go all the time. And I would have cysts pop up from time to time. And so like, I kind of got into the routine. I knew, it would pop up overnight and I'd have this tender spot and the doctor would send me to go have an ultrasound, so I kind of got into this routine. Well, in April of 2014, I woke up one morning, it was a Monday morning, and I had a rather large one. This was the largest one I had ever had. It was the most painful one I had ever had. But I really didn't think too much of it. I was just like, oh, got another cyst. I had a really extremely busy day, so I didn't get a chance to contact my doctor that day. But the next day I called and was like, hey, I have another cyst. Does doc want me to go have an ultrasound, or does she want me to come in and see her first? And so she decided she wanted me to come in to see her first. And then she sent me to have an ultrasound within a couple days. And based on the ultrasound, they also did a mammogram because it was time for me to do that anyway. And based on the results from that, they called me with an appointment for Saturday.
Oh, wow.
With a surgeon. And so I was like, freaking out.
Yeah.
Who has a doctor's appointment on a Saturday? I was like, it must be horrible that they've scheduled it. It turns out that he just normally has appointments from time to time on Saturdays. So it was just one of his regular Saturdays. Oh, but wow. It still freaked me out.
Yes.
And so I'm such a special person. I had 3 different things going on. So not only did I have that really large painful cyst, there was another fibroadenoma that had popped up. And then there was some suspicious material in the left breast. And so they ordered a biopsy. And because, I said this was April. And so I was scheduled to graduate in just a couple weeks. And I was like, I can't deal with this right now. Is there any way, can we just schedule my biopsy for after graduation? And I had to have a surgical biopsy because of where the cells were the suspicious cells were, because they were too high for the regular type biopsy that they do. And so I had to go into the hospital, go under anesthesia and all that hooey. And then within a week, I got the call that they did find some cancer cells there. And I was actually diagnosed with DCIS, which stands for ductal carcinoma in situ, which is basically like stage 0 cancer. It just basically means that there's cancer cells present, but they haven't come together as a collective unit yet to form a mass.
Wow, I'm glad you caught it early.
Yes.
Like super early.
Yes, super early. So because of that, and I was able to, I had options. So it wasn't urgent. I didn't have to be rushed into surgery or anything like that, but I had options. And so I had already decided even before I got the call, I was like, if it comes back that I have breast cancer, I'm not doing chemotherapy and I'm not doing radiation. So that was going to be out. And so I had 2 options. One, have what they call a lumpectomy, where they just go in and remove the area and the cells and then the area around it, and then have 5 weeks of daily radiation, or I could have a mastectomy, and that would be my, with reconstruction, and that would be the end of my treatment. And I was like, I'll take the mastectomy. But I asked, I was like, can we, go ahead, because I had the other issue going on in the right breast. I said, could I do both? And they said, absolutely. Insurance will cover both as a preventative measure. Easy peasy. And it only takes maybe about 30 minutes more. So I said, okay, well, I choose to do that. And so July 22nd, I went into the hospital and had a bilateral mastectomy with immediate reconstruction, which that process is kind of interesting because it's an outpatient surgery. So I only had to stay overnight. I ended up staying an additional night just because
I don't know.
because I was having so much nausea.
Okay.
From the anesthesia, because the procedure was supposed to take 2.5 to 3 hours, and it ended up taking 5 hours. So I was under anesthesia a lot longer than they had originally anticipated, and my body was not having it. It was not really happy with that, and so I ended up staying an additional day. But I had very little pain. I went home. I didn't even take the pain meds they gave me. I just took Tylenol. And so I'll explain a little bit of the procedure for you guys. So, they go in and remove all your breast tissue. And then if you're having immediate reconstruction, what they do is they cut a little slit in your chest muscles to create a little pocket, because your implant goes underneath the chest muscle because you have no breast tissue. So otherwise it would just be the implant and the skin. So it needs some sort of, and it could break through the skin because the skin is so thin. So they have to create a pocket. So they put what they call tissue expanders underneath your chest muscles. And then, and these tissue expanders, they look like regular implants, except for they're empty. They're like a bag or a sack, and it has a little valve on it. And so the valves are sit underneath your arm. And each week I had to go to the plastic surgeon's office for them to inject additional saline into the little tissue expander sacks to help build that pocket so that they can go back in later and insert the implants. And so there's all kinds of options nowadays. You can have, so they've now come out with these anatomically correct implants. And so they're basically just like teardrop shaped. And so I decided that I was going to try them out because they literally were just released, approved by the FDA and on the market just a few weeks before my surgery to have the actual implants installed or exchanged out. And I wasn't all that happy with them, but it was fine. But then I got sick like 2 months after I had the exchange surgery, really, really sick with bronchitis. And so I was coughing just profusely. And the coughing, because remember I told you the implants are underneath the chest muscles, because of all the coughing, it rotated my implant.
No.
So my teardrop shaped implants were sideways. So I had like sideways boobs.
Oh man.
Yes, it was an interesting.
This is an interesting time.
Yeah,
like
seriously. So we had to go back. I had to go back in and have a revision done, and they changed out the implants. And I decided to go with just the regular round ones. I was like, they can flip all they want now.
They're round.
Because they're round. It was like, it won't matter. I was like, I didn't want to take a chance, because he was like, oh, I could, do some things to make sure that it doesn't rotate again. I was like, no, let's just not even worry about it. We'll just switch out and do the round, and life will be good. And so I ended up having a total of 4 surgeries over the course of 18 months and, or 15 months, 15 months. And so that was quite a challenge. I spent quite a bit of my life. I feel like I wasted too much of my life under anesthesia because
Um, that's really interesting. Because right now you're talking about it very lightly. And so for the journey to have been 15 months, I know that this was something a little more extended. So
yes.
how do you help people? What would you say to someone to help them not feel completely down about having to make those decisions? Like you said, you had options, so you didn't have to
Right.
do a mastectomy. You could have gone the medicine route, but instead you went preventative as well as dealing
Hmm.
with it. So what could you say to someone who's having to face these same questions? And before we get there, I just had a former student, so she would be about 27, 28, have to go under the knife like
Yeah.
last month and do a double, um, because hers was found, and it was
Yeah.
just, and she is embracing it with a smile as well, outwardly. So can you speak more on the inward? Like, what do you do to pick yourself up? Because we talked about how you felt like you were sleepwalking, and just now, not only were you sleepwalking, now during this, you were under anesthesia. So there's just
Right.
this sleep and this numbness as a recurring theme at this point. Um, before you took the jump, or the jump was in the middle? Like, how did that go?
Which jump
The
are you
zip
talking about? Zip lining.
line. Mm-hmm.
So I went zip lining before I had the surgery because I
Okay.
wanted to build up my
The
my
tackle.
courage.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to build up my courage because um, really and truly, it boils down to faith. It was a faith walk, and I'm an ordained minister, and so I teach other people to walk by faith. And faith, my Christian walk is the central point of my life. And so this just called me to trust God in a whole new way, um, and on a whole nother level than what I had been doing. And it was my faith that enabled me to get through. Was I always like smiling about it? No, I had, it was a roller coaster going through those various phases. And most of the time I was just like, okay, God, we got this. We're going to do this. But I had those moments of breakdown where I, would just be sobbing. Um, and my husband would have to console me, or my daughter would console me. And but I had a really strong system of support, so my family rallied around me during that time, and supported me in their own each in their own way, because everyone kind of had their own way of dealing with the situation. And it's funny because um, it doesn't just affect you. I mean, even though you're the one that has to kind of carry the heaviest load, you're not the only one that deals with the fear. You're not the only one that deals with the sense of loss. Your family members feel that as well. And it was quite a challenge for my husband. And he was trying to be strong for me, and I was being strong, and he was just waiting for me to just kind of fall apart. And I remember one night I evidently was having a nightmare. I was kind of crying out in my sleep, and he woke me up and was like, are you okay? Are you okay? You were crying. I was like, oh, it was just a bad dream. And then he started crying and shared with me how he was like, I've been trying to be strong for you. And because I knew eventually it was going to come where you have a breakdown moment. And he's like, I thought, oh my God, this is it. And I wanted to make sure that I was strong for you. And he's like, I didn't realize, or he said he didn't realize how he had kind of been holding his breath, waiting for me. And he hadn't even dealt with his own fears and whatnot. And so it kind of all in that moment kind of culminated for him. And so everyone kind of had their own little breakdown moment. And, yes, I can talk about it now from a different perspective, from the perspective of I made it through and it wasn't as bad as I thought it might be. But it definitely wasn't a cakewalk. It wasn't a cakewalk. I had to deal with looking, and I have the reminder because I look in the mirror and I can see the scars. And I dealt with those issues of feeling like, am I less than a woman? Because I no longer have my breasts. I have breasts, but they're not, they're not my. I mean, I paid for them, so I guess they are mine. But, they're not my natural. They're not my natural breasts, and so there's damage that was done to my body as a result of this, and so I've been altered permanently as a result of it. And I also had to later get, I had to individually go see an oncologist and for follow-up just to make sure everything is okay. And the oncologist did genetic testing, and I ended up testing positive for the BRCA2 gene, which is that it's a genetic mutation that makes people who have that mutation more likely to experience or receive the diagnosis of 7 different cancers. So it's breast cancer, ovarian cancer, uterine cancer, pancreatic cancer, leukemia, colon cancer, and did I say pancreatic?
Mm-hmm.
I said that I don't know why I always forget that 7th one, but there's 7 different ones. And so I ended up having to go have colonoscopy done, and she recommended that I have a hysterectomy. And I was, even though I knew I wasn't going to have any more kids, I just was like, no, breasts were already gone. I'm not giving it up. And but then so I put it off for a couple of years, and then the situation necessitated that I go ahead and have that procedure done. So I just had that done right after Thanksgiving, the November 27th. And so I'm still in kind of a phase of gaining my strength back and recovering from that. And so that entered a whole new set of questions about womanhood and who am I still a woman because I don't, like, even though you are, it's like, it doesn't change your DNA. I'm still a woman, but I still kind of had that sense of loss. I'm like, I'm not having any more kids, but I'm like, oh, I was like, the thing that, not genetically, but physiologically gives me the opportunity to give birth and give life to another human being. And so, there was a little sense of loss surrounding that. And so I delayed that decision for quite a while because of it. But again,
So I want to ask you then, how would you define womanhood? How would you answer that question? Am I still a woman? Because again, that's something that women are going to ask themselves, that they're going to go through this whole mental trajectory of, I'm not physically, like I might be blood woman, but I'm not physically what society says a woman is. So how would you define womanhood then?
It's the essence of our personality. I mean, I still have the quote unquote external physical features of a woman. So like my shape didn't change because of it. I can still function as a woman, receiving a man. But we have to break the mindset or that stereotype that our womanhood is tied up and our reproductive system, because that's only a part of us. Your heart doesn't change. The essence of who you are doesn't change. So, like my personality is still the same as it was before. My husband might disagree, but, but I'm still the same person. I'm still the same Trasetta, as I was before the surgery. And, and so I think we need, really and truly, I think we need to have more conversations around that. I'm glad that you brought that up, because we really do need to have more conversations surrounding that, because it isn't, what is sexy?
Mm.
Because a lot of times women, once they have to go through one or more or both of these type of procedures, then they lose a little bit. They might lose some of their self-esteem. They may no longer feel sexy, because they're like, my body's been mutilated, and that can affect your self-image. So I think we really need to have a conversation about redefining what sexy is. And I've seen several campaigns. I know a lot of women have embraced their bodies post-surgery and not even had reconstruction. And they're getting like body tattoos and whatnot, just really celebrating their womanness breastless. And so my hat's off to those women, because there's bravery there, because even though there's not a mound of a breast there, they're still basically naked. And it's a space of vulnerability that we tend to not open ourselves up to. We tend to want to close ourselves off, and we want to put on our makeup, and we want to put on all these different things to say I'm okay with who I am to the outward world, but on the inside we're really dying.
Okay, so that's really where I think we could talk to women on this, because it is one thing to realize that you've been asleep, that you slept through life, and we will find that over these different tragedies, that is what people say, is that this was an awakening, this was that. But not only did you have an awakening, you've had to have a redefining.
Oh, absolutely.
And so how does that translate into your relationships with your daughter, especially? Did you test her to see if she also carries that gene?
She has not been tested yet. She had to go through, they make you go through genetic counseling before you actually get tested. She's only 25, and she hasn't made up her mind if that's something that she wants to do just yet. Okay. Because then once she knows, she can't unknow.
Yes.
And so, but they do, she will have to, have mammograms earlier, and just because of the history. But she's not, as of right now, she's decided not to have the testing done. That may change as she gets a little bit, older or whatnot, but she's very mindful of it. And she's like, Mom, I just don't really want to have that kind of hovering in the back of my head and wondering if, when. And, but one of the things, we've always been close. We're like sister, mother, daughter. And, but this situation brought us even closer. So she came and spent 5 weeks caring for me after when I had the surgery. I think she came about a week before my surgery, and she stayed for 5 weeks, and she stayed with me in the hospital, and took me to my appointments, helped when you first come home, you come home with drains, and she monitored the output of my drains, and cleaned up the valves and everything. So she did everything. She monitored my medications, and just was there every step of the way, cooked for me, and just really, she was the absolute best nurse that you could ask for. And then even when I had my hysterectomy in November, she came up and she spent an entire week with me, and then she left on that Sunday afterwards, and my mom came up that afternoon, and so she spent a week with me. And so, but through that, it really strengthened our relationship, and created an even greater intimacy that had not been there before. And I think you embrace your relationships more. I know I did. I embraced my relationships more because, you just don't know. You just don't know.
Did you resist her help at all, or were you open to receiving help from your daughter, from your husband, from your mom?
So, being a type A personality, it was very challenging, but my body necessitated the help. And I still tried to do things on my own, and found was like finally was just like, you can't, you just give in. So when I knowing that going into this last surgery, I went in was like, you know what, whatever help. Plus my doctor had scared the bejesus out of me with some horror stories from people who had tried to take on too much. And so I was like, I definitely don't want to have any more surgeries. And so I'm going to follow doctor's orders to the letter. So I was much more willing this go around to receive the help. And, but even then it was challenging because I had people in my community, coworkers and other people in my community who were like, what do you need? And just coming by and dropping off stuff. And so, I didn't want to say, oh, well, I need this or I need that. But then I finally was just like, you know what, just receive the help because you can't do it alone. And it just goes back to that, like what I was saying earlier, it's like, we're stronger together and we can accomplish more, we can achieve more, we can do more, we can be more when we work together. And so when one person has an area of weakness, then surround yourself with someone who's strong in that area. So, okay, well, I couldn't stand for more than 10 minutes at a time. So then I allowed other people to be my feet and to be my hands and do those things that I could not do for myself while I gave my body the time it needed to heal. But I'm not going to lie. I had my moments when I was like, no, I'm going to do it for myself. And my body was like, no, you're not.
Okay. So, I really feel like this was a really important part of this whole journey, this breast cancer journey, is learning how to redefine who you are when you lose what society says dictates you as a woman. And that we speak to the audience who is going through the same thing, the women, even the men who are finding themselves losing what society says makes us a woman, or even in some cases, just losing something that we said makes us who we are. So you really speak to some great points, like that womanhood is the essence of our personality. That is amazing. I love how you sum that up. And so I had a couple more questions before I let you go. One of the questions that I had, before we get there, what tools would you suggest for someone who's having to go through the same thing, who finds themselves no longer defined by the things they thought defined them?
Yes. So journaling, I definitely recommend journaling whenever it gave me an opportunity to just to process what was going on in my head without dumping it on someone else, because my family was already kind of nerve wracked because of what was going on. So I didn't want to dump on them all of my worry and concern and fear. So journaling gave me, matter of fact, I have my journal that I would use during right here. This was the journal that I wrote in while I was going through that process. And I didn't journal every day, just kind of whenever I just really felt like I needed to process some things. Definitely prayer, and surrounding yourself with people who are for you. I minimized negative people during that time frame. And I was very protective of my space, my mental space, because I didn't want negativity, doubt, fear, any of that stuff being spoken over me while I was going through this, because I was like, if you couldn't be positive, then you couldn't be in my space, because I only wanted to be fed positivity and you can do it. You're going to beat this. I'm with you. You're stronger than you think you are. Those kind of messages is what I wanted pumping in my head all the time. Personally, everyone kind of processes and deals with things differently. I didn't go researching. Well, that's kind of a lie. I tried to go researching to kind of see what other people's experiences were, and it freaked me. It scared me. And so I was like, nope, I'm just going to go through this experience myself. And I'm like, after it's over, then I can go back and look. But, so that's kind of, use that sparingly. If you're the type of person that needs information in order to get through, you just want to suck it all up and see what all the possibilities are, by all means, go for it. But for me, I had to avoid that because it was creating anxiety, where I was trying to go into it. And I actually had a mindset is everything. I had a coworker almost exactly a year later received the same diagnosis. She was a level 3, so she was just a little closer to actual stage 1 breast cancer than I was. But she didn't have, she's not a woman of faith. And she went into it completely in a phase of fear, or a mindset of fear. And so her experience has been completely, she would confide in me, but her experience going through the disease process, was much more different than mine, because she went at it from kind of a negative, for lack of a better term, mindset, as opposed to me going into it with a positive mindset. And so, and there's been research that shows that when it comes to health and healing, your mindset, your attitude towards your disease process, or what your treatment plan or whatever, has a huge impact on the outcome of your treatment plan. And so maintaining that positive space is going to be critical for you to be successful and have good outcomes. And I know that it's easier said than done, to remain positive, but I would just kind of have to catch myself that, I'm going down this what if, and working myself up into fear, and like, no, take a moment, meditate, take some deep breaths, do some meditation. And there's all these apps now. There's, I started using Headspace recently, but there's all these different apps. You can go on YouTube and look up guided meditations to just kind of help quiet your mind, because the thoughts are going to come. They're going to come racing, and they're going to come racing at you. And so you have to learn skills to quiet the mind so that you can get back to that space of peace, because the anxiety and the fear is not going to help you.
That was really, really good. So journaling, prayer, surrounding yourself with cheerleaders, and then protecting your mental space. That's definitely strong, and mindset. So these were really good. So how can we stay in contact with you? How can we further our relationship? with you?
Absolutely. So you can catch me on Facebook and Instagram as at Sister Spotters, or connect with me. I am Trasetta Alexander. My profile is public on both Instagram and Facebook. You can also connect with us at www.sisterspotters.com. I have a blog there for where productivity and efficiency is kind of, I geek out over that stuff. And so I have a blog there I call the productivity prompt. And so I share different tips and strategies to get more done in less time. So remember I was talking about how in entrepreneurship, you start your business and you're in business for yourself, but you're also by yourself. Mm-hmm. And so Sister Spotters is creative with the concept of how when you go into the weight room, you have a spotter. And so the role of the spotter is to cheer you on and make sure that you're safe and mm-hmm. help you push beyond your own perceived limitations. And so that's what we do with Sister Spotters. Okay. Is I serve as a business spotter. And so I'm supporting women in their business. I'm helping them with strategies, as well as helping them to stretch and go a little bit beyond what they think they can actually accomplish, and provide that space of accountability.
That's really good. Really, really good. All right. Well, I enjoyed talking to you. You are a woman who is definitely somebody to look up to, because that strength is there, that positive attitude is there. And I want to say I'm sorry for what you had to go through, but honestly,
it changed my life.
You've come out pretty strong,
Yeah. Yeah. You're going to have challenges in life. It's inevitable. And we can't control necessarily the challenges that we'll face in life, but we can control how we respond to them, how we show up for them. And I couldn't make it go away.
Right.
So I just chose to show up powerfully and purposefully so that I could come out victorious.
That is all we can do. So thank you for your time.